So sadly, sometimes as a property owner, it might be time to evict your tenant. Okay, so to go through and understand the entire process, watch till the end. Before we get there, hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon. My name is Fahd Dawood. I've been doing real estate for 14 plus years. Internationally, Dubai specifically, I talk about your life, my life, and our path to financial bliss. I'm also the author of The Intelligent Real Estate Investor. You can buy it off Amazon. You can order the ebook. I also work one-on-one if you're looking for specific services such as starting out with your investment in real estate, doing an opportunity, project evaluation. Are you looking for pricing and negotiation help? Perhaps handover of a property, or if you want to work one-on-one, a VIP package that's specifically designed to work with me from A to Z. There's a link at the bottom. It helps you understand on how you can work with me. If you want, you can apply, get in touch. Cool. Let's getting back to the topic at hand. Evicting a tenant. Somebody reached out to me last week, and obviously off of one of my YouTube videos, but I can't obviously work individually with each person and explain to them the process. So what I'm going to do, essentially speaking, is if you're in the middle, and I'll be upfront with you, if you're in the middle of evicting a tenant, this video is not going to be very helpful for you. The reason is because you might have already done things which might make things harder for you to evict the tenant from here on onwards. However, if you're a new landlord, or if you're even in the middle of evicting a tenant, perhaps some of the things that I say today, right now, are going to make sense for you, and you might be able to take away a few things that are going to help you. Also, a disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer. I don't represent any court or a law firm. Okay, I've just been in real estate. I've seen the whole A to Z of evicting tenants, how it gets played out. So I speak from personal experience, but you know, if you need legal advice, seek it from a lawyer. Okay, let's go a few steps backwards before we get into the nitty-gritty of evicting the tenant. Okay, first things first. Okay, you have to understand that there is a relationship. Okay, there is a relationship which is professional. Relationship, I think I spelled it correctly. You have a professional relationship with your tenant. So there's two sides to this. There is the practical aspect, and then there is the mindset. The mindset you bring to this relationship is very critical, okay? And this starts off right from the start. Okay, so there's the practical part and the mindset part. Okay, so let's put practical over here. This is what you need to understand as a landlord. Okay, what do I mean by this? When I say relationship, and it is a professional relationship, and there's a mindset behind it, and there's practical aspects to this is what I mean. Okay, let's discuss the practical aspects first, and then I'll get to the mindset. What are the practical aspects? Let's say you own a property, you've just become a landlord in Dubai specifically. What are the practical aspects of establishing a professional relationship with your tenant? You should actually carry out a professional move-in. Okay? What does a professional move-in look like? You walk through the property with a list in hand and explain to the tenant what are the things that are available in the apartment. Maybe it's furnished, maybe it's semi-furnished, maybe it's unfurnished, right? How many keys is he going to get? How many access cards is he going to get? You do a professional handover, and so you establish a very professional relationship with the tenant from the get-go. Ideally speaking, a professional property management company should be doing this for you, at least for the first year, so you can walk through and see the process, and then perhaps you want to do it yourself, you're more than welcome to do it. Okay, so there should be a very practical professional move-in of the tenant. Okay, the entire agreement process, the entire the connection of the electricity, the water, so on, the cleaning should be done very professionally so that your tenant understands that he is going forward in a professional relationship with the landlord. If you do a hodgepodge scenario where, you know, perhaps you let the tenant move in without collecting all the checks, if it's a 4-check tenancy agreement, perhaps if you are late with the cleaning, perhaps if you haven't paid your dues to the owners association, whatever it may be, if you don't establish the right practical steps right in the beginning, your tenant's going to start taking things for granted, and he's going to start assessing you as a novice landlord, and therefore your relationship does not remain professional. You are not looking to establish a friendly relationship. Now, this is something that you might disagree with. That's fine, I don't really mind, but this is advice from somebody in Dubai who handles a portfolio of 16 billion dirhams for multiple institutions, etc. and so forth. And the first time I heard this, I was pretty taken back as well myself. I was like, it's always good to have a friendly relationship with the tenant. Why not, right? Because at the end of the day, if you have a friendly relationship, you can always work things through. Wrong. You shouldn't have a friendly relationship. You should have a professional relationship so that all things can be worked through in a professional way. Because remember, your property is a business for you, right? Okay, so that's the practical things, yeah? Doing things the right way. There's a long list of things that we do, not the topic of the video. The other is the mindset. Do not have a friendly relationship, have a professional relationship. What do I mean by a professional mindset or a proper mindset around this relationship? This is what it is like, okay? Because you have a professional relationship, you kind of have a relationship which is, I am the service provider, you are my customer. I set your expectations of what you can expect from me, and you, Mr. Customer, can enjoy the services as per the agreed expectations. What do I mean by this, okay? Sometimes a tenant might bounce a check, okay? So let's say if a tenant bounces a check and you, because you had a professional agent draft the agreement, have a penalty. You know, there is a 1,000 dirham penalty for bouncing a check, which is completely fair that you should get a penalty. You, as the landlord, should not forego this penalty. The reason is, and this comes down to being professional and having a mindset that's professional and implementing these things. The reason why this penalty must be implemented on the tenant is because the tenant needs to know that bouncing checks is not okay. Okay? Because sometimes a landlord has mortgage payments, right? If he bounces a check, you can't make a mortgage payment and then you're gonna get a penalty on the mortgage payment. Whatever the case might be, even if you've got no penalty because he bounced the check and you were not caused any hindrance, just to make sure that the professional relationship stays professional, you must implement the penalty. Now, there are scenarios where your tenant might turn up to you and say, look, I'm so sorry that the check bounced, but the reason it bounced was X, Y, and Z. Maybe he was short of funds. You know, there's the corona situation going on, there's a pandemic, maybe he didn't have enough money, maybe he had to pay school fees. Okay, no problem. But what you must do is, in this scenario, you must send him email 1, inform him of the penalty. He must send you a reply requesting you to waive the penalty, and then you can then send him email 2 or email 3 confirming that the penalty shall be waived on the condition that no checks bounce in the future. So you can waive the penalty, but it must be conditional so that the tenant takes his responsibility seriously. I hope I'm making this clear. Now we come to, let's say, how do you evict a tenant, okay? Now, The reason this is very important is because when you're evicting the tenant, you have to remember you are not friends. You are in a professional relationship, and I hope it has not degenerated into a war-like situation at this stage if you're trying to evict it. But essentially speaking, if you have had this, you will not have this generally speaking. But let's even assume that you've got this situation and now you've got to evict the tenant, okay? Here's what happens, okay? The first check that the tenant bounces, you should, and this is very important, okay? All communication should be written. This is extremely critical, and I'm gonna write this down like this. What you're essentially going to do is the moment the check bounces, the first check, right? Because we're not at the evict the tenant stage yet. Only his first check perhaps has bounced. You should send him a written email explaining to him that the check has bounced and he should remedy it, and the penalty of 1,000 or 500, whatever was there agreed upon in the agreement, is going to be applicable. Okay, now the tenant is going to reply to you and say, look, I've got the cash, or I've got the check, or I'm going to redeposit it, whatever the case might be. They're going to move to remedy the situation immediately. Okay, if they don't, what you should do is immediately go to court. It's not very expensive. You need to send them a written notice. So let's just call it a notice, okay? So we do this. You have to send them a notice to remedy the situation within 30 days, okay? This is by law in Dubai that the tenant gets 30 days to pay his money, okay? If he does not pay in 30 days, now this notice has to go via the notary public, via one of the courier services. So there is a record receipt that this notice was sent and received by the person, okay? If it's not received by the person and you go straight to court to evict the tenant, the court might say, you know, did you give this notice? It kind of like sends you back. Essentially speaking, you must move to do this immediately if your tenant is not paying you and not confirming by email that he's ready to pay you and move forward in the relationship in an amicable and a professional way, okay? So you must do this immediately. The second step, okay, so maybe we've got some space over here, is then you go, oh, so by the way, this is something I'm going to actually explain. Before I say court, let's take a step back, okay? Maybe the reason that the tenant has not paid is because he's lost his job, or there's other situations. Now, the court over here, they've ruled recently that, you know, losing a job because of this whole pandemic situation, it's kind of like force majeure. So you can't apply a penalty. You can't try to get money that's back pay. Essentially speaking, work things out. So before I say go to court, what I'm going to suggest to you, okay, in the realm of keeping the relationship professional, you've got to make a smart business decision, okay? Maybe he hasn't paid and maybe he stayed there for a month now, but he can prove to you by emailing you proof from his company that his salary's been cut, that he is been laid off. I hope nothing like that happens to anybody in Dubai or the world over, but these are realities. For some people, it happens, right? If you're a smart landlord, being a professional, having the right mindset and being practical, what at this stage you do is, you know, you apply the, let's say, the penalty of 2 months if you can get that from your tenant, if he's got a good reserve bank balance. You know, one of the person who actually manages apartments, the same person who runs 16 billion dirhams worth of investment portfolio, he essentially tells them, like, okay, if you've lost your job, if you can show me 3 months of worth of bank statements of yours and your wife, we can waive your penalty as well. You don't have to waive a penalty. You don't have to pay a penalty. But here's the thing that you need to understand. Let's say the tenant's been there 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Now you're trying to collect back rent, but you know that he cannot pay you. Make this wise decision and get him out. Cancel his Ijari and his tenancy agreement. Cancel his electricity. Cancel his whatever needs to be done the proper way, and assist your tenant to move out in a proper way. Maybe you could do a personal agreement where he chooses to say, I will pay you this money at a later stage once I get it, but I'm ready to vacate the apartment so you can rent it out to somebody else. Be practical and let him vacate the apartment before you go to court, okay? Now at this stage, let's go, for instance, if he's not responding to you and he's not leaving the apartment and you've already served him notice to pay, that's when you go to court. The court's going to give you 1, 2, perhaps sometimes 3 dates. In Dubai, you don't go to court and present a case in front of the judge. You essentially give a written application explaining the circumstances, and then the court sends a notice to the tenant to show up to one of these, to a hearing, so to speak, and give a written explanation of why he has not paid, okay? Maybe the tenant has reasons for not paying. Maybe you've not kept up the apartment. Maybe there's maintenance issues. Maybe he has proof that he's paid you cash, right? I don't know, but which is why everything should be written in email. If the tenant doesn't show up here, court gives him, I believe, one more option to show up. If he doesn't show up here, either the court judges in your favor and it's pretty much a done deal, and you can then enter the apartment as per the court notice, not on your own, okay? Do not in Dubai take the law in your hand. Do not go and evict your tenant out, throw his stuff out, even if he's left the country. You gotta go through the court system if you're looking to evict him. But this should generally happen if you follow the steps between 2 to 3, maximum 4 months. You should have your tenant out. Dubai is very fair between tenants and landlords. We're not like some of the countries in Europe or North America, where things are sometimes so stacked against landlords, which is fair sometimes in those countries, that you can't get your tenant out for essentially 6 months to a year. Dubai is not like that. If you follow the process, you can get them out between 2 to 4 months, as long as you're following the process. But even before you get to this situation, right, court and all this, choose a good tenant and choose a good agent and choose a good property management company that manages your relationship with the tenant. There's a lot of horror stories that I personally believe landlords bring upon themselves because they've just not managed the relationship in a professional way from the get-go. So if this helps you get rid of your tenant in this video, great. If this helps you set up the right relationship, great. I'll be frank with you, even us as agents, we deal with difficult tenants, easygoing tenants, and I've had very, very, very difficult tenants. Bless them, bless them. I love them from the bottom of my heart because, I had this one tenant for 5 years or 6 years, really tough person. A tough person because his situation had become very difficult. He had invested some money and he had lost his money. But I turned that. I wouldn't say I turned. Alhamdulillah, we were able to turn that relationship around so that when he left my apartment, by that time we had a very professional, good relationship. We could sit down, have coffee and speak nicely about everything. But we agents, property management companies also learn as we have developed, but you as a new landlord might not know all the tricks of the trade. So employ a professional property management company who can handle your tenant for you on your behalf. If not, and you're dead set to do it yourself, buy a few good books. They're available. My book has, at the end of the book, stuff that property management companies do, and if you can do it yourself, then it's good. There's another gentleman, his name Muhammad Al-Wadia, and he's generally known as the Wolf of Wall Street, and you can actually Google him. He's got 2 books, landlording. Use those templates, use those things to have a professional, proper relationship with your tenant. Hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon. You want to work with me, check out the link in the description. Ciao for now. Talk to you soon. Bye.